we are going to try and explain and tell you a bit about ARTE today. We've got some wonderful guests here. It's a big organization, so we'll do our best, and then we'll run some reel we've got with some samples of what ARTE has been doing recently.
Bon, ça va pas, ça va. Je vais vous hospitaliser, mademoiselle. Je suis désolé, mais...
Ah, mais vous pouvez pas m'hospitaliser.
Parce que je le considère comme un danger. Je fais ça pour votre bien.
Vous pouvez pas?
Si.
Qui c'est qui signe la HDT?
Ça, c'est pas un problème. C'est pour vous protéger qu'on fait ça. Je suis désolé, mais je le fais. Je pense que, de toute façon, je vais vous dire, je pense que si vraiment vous vouliez pas être hospitalisé, vous ne seriez jamais venu me voir ce matin. Donc je pense qu'en même temps, vous dérapez complètement. Vous n'êtes pas bien. J'ai les informations que j'ai. C'est donc qu'on va vous amener à l'unité fermée. Je suis désolé, hein, mais il faut vraiment. C'est pour vous protéger que je fais ça. Parce que ça va déraper, ça va mal se finir cette histoire.
Mais
bon, venez avec moi, stop. Venez avec moi.
Non, mais attendez, vous.
Je suis médecin hospitalier, je prends la décision qui s'impose dans votre cas. Je pense que vous êtes reprise, vous avez probablement un petit peu arrêté votre traitement, vous êtes de nouveau pas bien du tout, je pense que vous êtes en danger, vous ne percevez pas les choses telles qu'elles le sont vraiment, et je pense qu'il faut qu'on vous protège. Voilà, venez avec moi. Je suis désolé, mais venez avec moi.
A few months before the fall of the Berlin Wall, in a small clearing in the heart of the woods on the Polish and Czechoslovak borderline, a clandestine meeting brought together Czechoslovakian and Polish opponents to their country's communist regimes. They are meeting here despite the border guard controls, despite the vigilance of the secret police. Conspirators of democracy, they were called the dissidents.
Crime rate went up, people started moving out, houses went abandoned, and families that's lost everything.
We are going to change that.
Who's behind this whole thing? What caused all this?
Millions of people that's losing their home.
Subprime loans.
Yes.
Is that the bank's fault?
Hearing. This court is now in session.
The city of Cleveland, represented by attorney Josh Cohen, has brought this lawsuit against 21 named defendant banks, should the banks be held liable for damages suffered by the city of Cleveland.
You're about to lose your home, is that correct?
Yes. told you that you could refinance your house for $40,000?
Yeah.
What did you put in a tennis court or a jacuzzi or something in the interim?
I painted it. Did you ever believe that they were biting off more than they could chew?
Don't we all do that, though?
This is the American dream. Hey, this is my house.
Sold for $30,000.
I think the banks took advantage of it.
The banks don't care.
You don't care. The brokers don't care.
It was on purpose. It was calculated. It was meant to do what it has just done.
He said, Mike, can you really go out and look for somebody dumber than you and try to take advantage of them?
In order for them to succeed, you have to be kept in the dark.
They tricked poor, elderly people.
You permitted the privileged few to exploit the unsuspecting many. And how did Wall Street embrace that?
They loved it.
Winston Churchill once said, if you're going through hell, keep going. Keep the American dream going.
We got a chance to make a statement. This is our goddamn city. This is not an academic exercise. We got a chance to make a statement to America. We can change things.
Being a homeowner is a good thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Of course, with such a large organization, we could only get some samples. I mean, this is just but I think these also need to be explained in context, and I'm hoping our guest today can tell us a little bit more about these wonderful projects. Karen or Marianne?
Just to bring some detail about what you've just seen, this is represent a number of films co-produced by the documentary department in ARTE France. So it's far from representing the range of documentary programming of the channel, but it tells, I think, interesting things about the diversity of subjects and narrative style of the film the channel produces, and also it tells a lot about the diversity of the way we enter productions, either directly with filmmakers or independent production companies abroad, or through French producers, and with projects involving domestic French or German situations or foreign situations, French or German filmmakers or foreign filmmakers. All that is, there's a real big diversity of situations. We're going to try to explain that a bit more.
Karen, I thought you could...
Yeah, well, in this trailer, that was not what we are doing in our department, but still I would like to push forward what Marianne says. And in regarding investigation, the field I am working on, we try also to get this kind of different writings, productions on the current topics, and try to give an overhaul looking at worldwide issues from domestic directors and international directors too.
I wonder if you could try and explain to most people, what is ARTE? Sorry, I know. Wait, give it a try.
What is ARTE?
It's a public service.
As you know, we've been having our anniversary, 20 years anniversary, so it's quite a good time to know what path we've been on for 20 years, what the work has been done with ARTE regarding all the TVs broadcasting, public broadcasters. It is true that it is the political will at the beginning, German and French issue to have this channel all together, and after 20 years, it's obvious, I guess, that the work it's been doing, it's trying to work as the best as we can with independent producers, trying to get author writings, trying to get novel views of topics that won't be perhaps been in other channels. So it's a window of the world and the place for authors, young authors, producers, independent producers to work with a channel. Briefly,
I'd say one of the main specificity of ARTE is its European identity and essentially Franco-German. That means that the channel has a specific structure, which is based both in France and in Germany, and with a central body which deals with programming in Strasbourg. It's a public channel with this European audience. We're not a national channel, and that changes a lot compared to other public broadcasters in Europe. What we try to do is to bring to our viewers a diversity of viewpoints, of realities, of creativity through both documentaries, fiction, cinema. Documentary represent roughly 30% of the programming of the channel. So it's one of the main pillars of the channel. What can I say? The element, there's a cultural element in ARTE which is really important in a very broad sense, meaning reflecting creation in, I'd say, traditional fields like paintings, writings, arts in general, but also an ambition of support creativity in filmmaking itself. So that's
to start. I thought Sirka might speak a little bit about the German side, if you could, please.
Well, I think first of all, because to imagine that the channel is really available in both countries. They're emitting the same signal at the same time, but in Germany you get German versions with German subtitles or German dubbed, and in France you get French versions. So that is, any film that has been on ARTE will later on be available in two versions, because it has to be one for the French and one for the German market, maybe that to kind of understand the practicalities. The system in Germany, because ARTE is part of or is associated with the German public service television system, and some of you might know the German system is a bit complicated because Germany is a federal state, so that means that all the Länder, which are roughly equivalent to regions, so the federal regions, each of them has their own authority over the media. So they all have their own channels, and these channels are composing the first channel, ARD. So ARD has a lot of local offices in different places. So some of you might know channels like WDR or BR or NDR or MDR, and they are actually regional channels that form ARD, and they also have these regional channels also are responsible for the third channel in Germany, which is a bit like ITV here, which has local channels like ITV Yorkshire, or used to have, at least when I was living here. I don't know, it might have changed. So that's the one thing, ARD with its slightly complicated regional structure, and then you have ZDF, which is the second German channel. ZDF is based in Mainz. ZDF is easier because there's just one ZDF office, which is big, and it's a big channel, but so it's easier to get your head around the ZDF. And all of these have commissioners that deal with ARTE. So within Germany, the whole structure of getting a project through, it has to go through this whole conference that goes on between the ARD, ZDF, and the French office. So it can be a bit daunting. I've actually, when I told a colleague who's a producer that I was asked to kind of fill in on this panel, he said, I should strongly encourage all of you, if you want to work with Germany and ARTE, find a German co-producer, because it's easier for them to help you with that than actually try to get into this in more detail yourselves. There's a third element. There is 3SAT, which is yet another of these international channels. 3SAT, Dreisat is a cooperation between Germany, Austria, and German-speaking Switzerland. So it's a cable channel that was set up and is programmed by these three countries, and they also have an ARTE department. So they also have commissioners that will suggest programming for for the general ARTE. So within Germany, there's quite a lot of different places to go to, and it can sometimes be difficult to find the right one to go to.
I just wanted to actually throw in and ask a question, actually, why we have all of you here. Am I on? No? Am I on? Yes, can you hear me? Okay. I just want to ask a question before Karen leaves. Is because I'm always confused as a producer, how Germany and France work together, or if they do work together.
The way it goes is that mainly proposals go either to the French offices of ARTE France in Paris, or through the German structure just described. And the central part that is in Strasbourg is coordinating proposals coming from France and Germany, which constitutes roughly half each of the programming of the channel. One thing you should be aware of is that when you work, let's say, with ARTE France, and you enter a co-production with ARTE France wants the rights for ARTE, meaning French and German territories. That will make any dealing with the national French or German other broadcaster difficult to negotiate, because ARTE will want to have the priority of transmitting. This is open to negotiations, but you have to bear that in mind.
Which is normally translates into an exclusivity window. And because there is so many channels, sorry to jump in, but because there's so many channels involved within Germany, until this exclusivity window, that means that each of the channels has to have screened the film at least once. So there is, that can be about a year normally, or half a year if you're really lucky, when you have to wait until after the first broadcast window of 1 year until they've used that up. I think you should also say that, because your question was how does it really work, there is, for different slots, different, they're assigned to different departments. So there is some slots, like the Germans are filling in half of the theme evenings and the French are doing the other half. So it doesn't mean that they all have to sit down all the time and discuss what they're doing. There is communication between the German and the French side, and I believe there's also like a French-German program conference. So the big issues are discussed regularly, but for the kind of day-to-day dealing.
So if there was one program, for example, on one subject, and France had the subject, and Germany also wanted to do it, how do you decide who
pays for it,
or who if you have a documentary on the same subject, for example, and Hans Robert puts one in, and so do you? How do you? Does Strasbourg?
You mean same subject or same project?
Same project, same subject.
So if it's same subject and two different projects, there's a chance that it doesn't happen, because at the central kind of committee, which gives the final approval to the involvement of ARTE, they will raise the issue of two different programs on the same topic at the same time. So that may be a reason for one of them not to happen. Exceptionally, that's really recent, and that's absolutely not a model, because it's so exceptional. We actually do co-productions within ARTE between French and German stations. But, forget it.
Perhaps what would be interesting is to see how the decision process is going on in ARTE also, because the question you raise is one of the questions. So it is true that it is said that it's 50% each side bringing the thing within ARTE. So it means that producer propose us within ARTE France or within the different channel in Germany project. And then you've got process that goes in France. You go into first commissions, where all the projects are examined, and then they go to another process with all the head departments of ARTE France, and then those projects goes to Strasbourg, where they are discussed with all the projects coming from Germany. And then is this meeting was talking about Marianne, all the projects that had been discussed before within our own channels are discussed for final decision in these boards. And then we can see if there is some project similar from Germany or not Germany. Regarding the slots, all the slots are not divided by half-half. Some are totally held by the German side, some by the French side, and some slots are, how do you say?
Shared.
Most of them. Most of them, but it depends on the slot, but most of them. So we've got quotas on co-production from each part and on the acquisition too. Another thing, ARTE's got this agreement, European agreement with some channels, Finnish, Spanish, Belgium, Finland.
Swiss?
Not Swiss, but Finnish, Swiss, Polish, not Swiss, sorry about this. But several countries, sorry, not being so precise. But we've got this agreement that ARTE Strasbourg got some co-production quota with those countries, and then they co-produce all one theme evening or some documentaries to fill in this quota. So which is one part of the co-production too that ARTE goes from Strasbourg.
So how does that translate into money for the producers with these deals that ARTE have with Finland or Spain or?
It means that this is an agreement directly on the level of
political
of the head of the channels, and it means it's very few programs in reality. But let's say that a project is presented through this process by Belgium. It'll mean that Belgian RTBF, for instance, will bring half of the budget and ARTE the rest of it. So it's like a joint co-production at this level.
So it doesn't mean less money for the less production investment.
The amounts are not the same the amounts are not fixed. The amounts are negotiated, projects by projects first, and the amounts, because the rights themselves are not the same. If you go through ARTE France, it'll be for one specific strand. It won't be the same as if you go through ARTE Germany.
I thought actually I would ask Natasha and Nikki while they're here, as they've done for projects with ARTE, if they could sort of tell us about how they first came across, how they first got in touch with ARTE and started working with them.
The first one we did was a project called 37 Uses for a Dead Sheep, which was made in 2005, and that was because I was at Discovery Campus, and at Discovery Campus you meet all the lots of ARTE commissioners. I'd never ever met any of them before, and I began a relationship with Christoph Jorg, who was at Specialist Factual, and we had money from Nick Fraser already, and then Christoph came on board, and that was our first kind of co-production with ARTE. And then from that, we've done about 4 or 5 more, basically. And then, so we had about ARTE made it happen, and then we had 4 or 5 other small broadcasters.
Yeah, and I think because that film was quite successful internationally, it won quite a few awards. It was easy for us to go back to ARTE with another project.
What was it like? I mean, did you have to, how did you get in touch? I mean, what were the meetings like? I mean, how are they different from, the meetings you have here? I mean, I'm sure people are kind of interested in how it's...
I think you have to be aware of the slots, which unfortunately we weren't at the time. we weren't because we don't have ARTE, and so we didn't, it's a shame we don't in the UK. But so a Storyville is quite a more kind of very interesting slot, I suppose, a more kind of artistic slot, and we were on Sunday. We didn't realise, but we were on Sunday night in Specialist Factual, which is a kind of mainstream, isn't it? You know, it's quite a big night. And so the 37 Sheeps was quite an eccentric film, and I think Christophe had a terrible time, actually, you know, trying to get it through. And we ended up that we had a very different beginning and a very different end, and the film was very different. And so then we realised that actually, when you work with ARTE, you really have to know what slot you're dealing with, because it is very different.
Could you tell us a bit about the slots, or explain a bit about your slots, because you were telling me about that before, please?
The documentary slots are, there's a number of them. The main ones, I'd say, if I start on Saturday, I mean the primetime documentaries runs, there are Saturday evening, which is discovery, civilization, knowledge, with formats that are either 60 minutes or 260 minutes or feature length. There's thema evening on Sunday evening, which is normally structured with cinema, film, and a documentary, the format of which is quite open. This is an evening family audience. For instance, they've done things on about cinema, about. I mean, they have.
There's two books that list all the theme evenings that have already happened. So if any of you think I have a brilliant idea for a new theme evening, you should check it. Probably has been done already.
I mean, even.
Since 1995, many of them, of course.
Generally speaking, there is a website that has a lot of information about ARTE's programming. Then there's on Tuesday evening, theme evening.
Tuesday, theme evening on investigation, 2 hours, 52 minutes. It can be a combined or 252 minutes or a 175, and then we have a debate on the topic. It depends on the issue of the topic. This is on the Tuesday.
And then on Wednesday evening prime time, there's History Strand, 19th and 20th century history, either 1 hour or feature length. And then there's culture strand, either very contemporary culture, socially relevant, or more classical culture, traditional culture. There's also a late night strand called La Lucarne for more essayistic, experimental films with a quite open format in terms of duration. And there's Grand Format. Yeah. Grand Format is feature-length documentary strand.
Science.
Which is the strand within which was shown When China Met Africa, which you've just seen an excerpt of, and which was shown in the festival, which is directed by British filmmakers. Contemporary issues, character-driven, situation-driven. And then the science strand also dedicated to contemporary scientific discoveries mainly.
Yeah, that's about it. And we've got a day scheduling also, so more small slots, but still, as I told you before, a slot called biography that is 43 minutes on committed people. And we can make also co-production on those. It's less money. It's a small window, but still, it's a documentary slot.
But maybe I think it might be interesting to get some kind of average figures of if you say less money, how much is much money in ARTE and how much is less money?
Yes, that's a weird question. But well, actually, regarding our themed evening, the average for 52 minutes is 110,000, 110,000. Okay, you've got it. For 52 minutes, and then this slot I was talking about before, it's 80,000, 80,000.
80,000.
Sorry about the
euros.
figures.
It's all euros, right?
Yes, it's all euros. Yes. Excuse me. Yeah. No, the artist part. Yeah.
And depending on the strands, it can be a bit more, a bit less. But that gives you an order.
I think it's been a bit less in our case, so we obviously need to ask for more next time.
Do you want to talk about?
Yeah. We could talk about budgets. We made a film called Dolce, Vita, Africana in 2007 for ARTE ZDF, and it was about Malik Sidibe. He's a Malian photographer. He's in his 70s now. But also it was about sort of Malian history over the last 40 years, but using Malik's photos to tell the story. And we actually got 55,000 from...
Yeah, again, I have to say that the amount we just gave you are on the side of Arte France. Yeah. So it's this goes with being a co-producer, sharing rights in the film, in its exploitation, and acquiring rights for roughly two transmission within 3 years on Arte. On the German side, they acquire quite different rights.
Yeah. But I think you should also know that on the German side, normally the German producers tend to negotiate a longer window to try and exploit the film in the cinema, because a lot of the German additional funding comes through the film funds, and the film funds require that your film has a cinematic release. So most German films that get produced for ARTE normally have a 2-year window before they actually end up on ARTE, unless they're current affairs programs. So there is additional funding in Germany, and I think that's also why there is less, where the budget is less, because they assume that you will get some of the regional funding in Germany as well.
Yeah. One thing we didn't realise when we went into the deal with ZDF ARTE was that they actually pay on delivery, because our previous experience of working with ARTE had been with ARTE France, and they'd cash flowed the production. So we were really shocked to get the contract and find out that we were only going to get our 55,000 euros on delivery. So that's something to be aware of, I think, when you're doing your finance plan.
But I think some of these things, because in France there is also regional or kind of local money available. If you have a French co-producer, they can access the money from the CNC and the ProCirep. And in Germany there's a lot of local sources of money. So if you have a German co-producer and it depends where they're based, they can try to access local money. So it sometimes pays off to find a partner, find somebody who you like and who you get on with, but then you might be able to find more budget for your film and make a hopefully bigger, better film for it.
Yeah, this is an important part of it, of course, because it is true that when you get first a French co-producer, if we don't know the foreign co-producer, it's better for us for relations and knowing how to deal with the project. And in the case of money, of course, we've got some institution like CNC, and then you can have your project proposed to those institutions to get some more money. So it is both interest for us to get, or for you, to get a French co-producer on this. It is not compulsory, but sometimes it's better.
We've never, in our 5 productions, we've never had a co-producer, although actually now we're probably thinking about it, because you can probably get, CNC money a lot more, and on the other side, the German side as well. And also, they know the slots better than we do sometimes, so it's, it's how to make the film.
Again, just to relate this question of co-production to the amount we gave you, the amount we gave you are valid for actual co-production. When we work with foreign companies, what we tend to do is to enter the film through pre-acquisition for less money. So that might explain the difference in amounts.
I think we've done the two of the films. Only When I Dance in Naples, one for Grand Format and one for Specialist Factual. They were co-productions, and we got about 70,000, €5,000, which I think is...
I mean, there's maybe a vocabulary question. I haven't the contract in mind, but for that amount, it was probably pre-acquisition.
Oh, really?
For
It says co-production on it.
Excuse me?
It says co-production on the contract, I think, but
yeah?
I haven't got it with me. But I'm sure it was a co-production, especially as factual. Maybe that's fine. You've opened our eyes to now we can demand more.
Well, we've learned something. And just one other thing I'd say about working with ARTE and ZDF is that you need to be aware of the deliverables, because if you're making, like I say, a Storyville ARTE co-production, your set of deliverables are completely different. So you need to provide, because of the French-German thing, you need to provide textless masters and say with the Dolce Vita Africana film, we had to find Bambara speakers in London because we had to provide an original language script, because they don't, when they translate, they don't translate from an English translation, they translate from the original language. So again, with 37 Uses for a Dead Sheep, we had to find people who spoke Kyrgyz in London. So you just if you're making those sort of international type films, you have to have the deliverables in your head.
I'm going to ask a question, and then we'll open it up to the floor, because I know there's some questions here I'm seeing. I'm curious, given, looking at the clip reel, that we've got, a wide range of projects, and we also have, of course, the wonderful Prison Valley, which you guys produced, Joël Ronet's. If you haven't seen it, it's at the Interactive Center, I think it is, over there. It's a wonderful prison documentary it's an interactive project. And I thought I wanted to ask you both what you are interested in, what you've been looking for while you've been here, and what.
Yeah, I'll just make a short comment about internet. ARTE is really interested in developing projects for its website or cross-media projects working both for the web and the channel. There's a web department in ARTE France headed by Joël Ronet's, and he's got a production budget and a development budget. So that's an area where we really want to move forward. And welcome to the website of ARTE. You'll see a number of production we did these 2-3 last years.
Can you tell, is there a dedicated ARTE website for producers? Because if you Google ARTE, you will end up on the website that is for consumers and TV viewers. Is there a specific site where people here could go and find more information?
There is. If you go to arte.tv, there is a part of the website called ARTE Pro, which is for professionals, where you find a whole range of informations.
And that's available in English as well?
I think part of it, yes.
German. It is important regarding internet also. It's a real, excuse me about it. It's a real political will in ARTE to get into internet today and new formats. As Marianne said, we did Gazage des Routes, Prison Valley, so that shows that there is a real ambition in ARTE to develop this kind of project. And you have to know also that in France, they created this commission to CNC dedicated to web project. So which is important that in France, we, institution, give money also, like with documentary, for web project.
What was your question?
Well, I'm just curious to ask about what you've been looking for while you've been here, what you've been interested in, what projects you've been sort of, interested in meeting with filmmakers about.
There's no simple answer to that. It's really interesting to be here, to meet a number of really interesting British filmmakers, a different way of looking at things. There is a number of projects of international scope which are really interesting to us. More specifically in terms of subject or whatever, I wouldn't be able to answer. We don't really, for a number of our strands, we don't really work that way. We are really interested in filmmakers and in powerful narrative creativity.
I thought you guys might want to talk about some of the range of your thing, your current projects with.
Yeah, we could talk about the project we're currently doing with ARTE, which is about the regeneration of Elephant and Castle in London, which we're working with a director called Enrico Caluso on, and we're actually, this is our first co-production with a French company, with ARTE.
Yeah, this is an interesting example. Yeah. This is she's Italian. She lives in London. She's been living there for years, so she can be considered as an English filmmaker in a way. Yeah. We had already worked with her on a film settled in Colombia, and she came with this project that takes place in London. Which deals with English society and English politics, English realities, and since she's a very interesting filmmaker, we find her way of looking at things is really interesting to us, both because of her personal point of view and because of the obvious analogies between the British situation and the rest of Europe. And then the partnership around the project is quite interesting as well, because there's an English production company, there's a French production company associated to the project, there's ARTE involved through ARTE France, and for the moment there's no British broadcaster.
No British broadcaster. And I think it's crazy, because we've been pitching this project to the British broadcasters, and it's something that they're not coming on board. So it's kind of ironic that ARTE have really got behind it, and we're really excited about working with them on it. And I think, it's brilliant that ARTE's had the sort of foresight to see that they can program this during the 2012 Olympics in London, and it's just going to show people, and what else is going on in London. So we're pleased to be working with them on it.
I think I could see some hands around, so I thought there's a gentleman up front. If we could start with some questions from you guys.
Hello, Tim Spark from Mercury Media. Can you just take us through any differences that exist with the acquisition process as opposed to the co-production process?
Acquisition would happen on the film finished, but there would be an intermediate stage of a possible pre-acquisition with less money than a co-production, more than a simple acquisition, and with still on our part the wish to be quite present in editorial terms if we enter at, in the middle of editing, for instance, at a stage where we can see quite a lot of material, but the filming already done. So that's a stage where we can come in, and then we can acquire. It's the same in ARTE France, and I know that's not the case in other French public broadcasters. It's the same teams do co-productions and acquisitions, so you talk to the same people.
And for Germany?
It depends from channel to channel, because in some of them the acquisition is also done through the commissioning departments, and in some it is their general acquisitions department that will look at things and then propose them to the departments. So it's a mix of both. I mean, when I sell to German ARTE, there's both. First you try via the commissioners, and if you have a project where you don't really know where to place it, you might want to go through the acquisitions department, because they will know who might be interested or in which slot that might fit. I mean, that's also a good way, because you need to find out where does this fit. So try and talk to people, find out what they've done, look at the films that they've made, and try to kind of compare your idea to that to get some idea.
Yeah, because ARTE France, it's a matter of structure within the department. The department is all together with the money, administration, post-production, commissioning editor, and so you will get the acquisition and co-production. It's not built a different level that we will have a acquisition department on a way, money in another way. You know, it's integrated team. That's why it works this way, and that's why knowing the slots is very important.
And you know, there's some examples also here at the festival. Like one of the films we have in our catalogue, to do a bit of promotion, is called I Shot My Love. It was a production by WDR artists, so the German side of ARTE, and it's screening at 4 this afternoon, so you can catch it after this. And that is an example that was from the theme evening people, and the directors have made a long version for ARTE. They've made a short version subsequently for international sales. So you know, just there is the thing with the ARTE version is that very often you have an ARTE version, you probably know that, but then you have some kind of length that nobody else will want, so you'll have to make another length so that you can sell the film somewhere else. So, you know, it's not as easy and straightforward as going to a UK broadcaster. They tell you this length, you do it, you get paid somewhere along the way, and then you're done and you move on to the next project. I think if you're trying from the UK to work with ARTE, you have to take into account there's going to be a longer process, and that you might have to do more, spend some more time in the editing room to get all the versions.
Also to go to Paris for meetings and things like that, which is, I mean, I think the 3 projects we did were very different in terms of editorial as well. I think when we did Naples 43-48, which is a more historical programme for Pirette, we had more intense debates and editorials, and we went to Paris quite a lot. When we did Only When I Dance for Specialist Factual, that was slightly less editorial. I just think it depends on the project, doesn't it, and which department and which slot, basically.
And I think right at the beginning of the process as well, ARTE expects a lot more in terms of the treatment. I mean, you practically have to write a novel to rather than a couple of pages of a treatment, which is something that you would work in the UK. So
I'd say that depends again, probably on the projects themselves, on the commissioning editors, on the extent of familiarity with the production company and the filmmaker himself.
There's a question over there, and then there's another one over there, please. And many more. We'll get to you. Thank you.
Yes, well, you sound very interesting, and you seem to really like filmmakers, which is a nice change from how it feels working with British commissioners sometimes. But do you really like us? I mean, can we contact you? Can we send in proposals? Can we, how do we build up this relationship with you as a filmmaker, or will you only talk to people if they're connected with a production company?
I'd say, welcome, but given the limited duration of life, it's probably not possible to get contact with all the interesting filmmakers that are in Britain or elsewhere. The thing is that to settle a production agreement, you'll need producers on your side of the channel if you're English. And I would advise the same on the French side for the reasons we've already said. But we go to festivals, we're interested in meeting filmmakers, we're interested in meeting films. So,
yeah, to push forward, it is true that those places, and I thank Sheffield's organization, so well done. So anyway, just clap for Sheffield. That those meetings, those pitching sessions, those panels are very important, because indeed this is the best way, if we can do that, to meet people, because receiving project this way is sometimes hard, of course, because you've got your mail, you can't open it after. But still, it is true that topics are not the main issue for us. The main issues are narrative description and willing desire. It's a matter of desire meeting another desire. something like, even if it's very utopic thing, but it goes with that first. So what we do expect, it's having proposals that are already been thought as a matter of content and as a matter of way of telling the story. So this is the main part of it. And indeed, I invited you to get contact with us this way.
So just to clarify that, I was still on, yeah. So you will look at proposals that are sent to you?
Yes, but there is loads of proposals and it's normal. But just to be clear about that, we receive a lot of things on topics. Like we've got this idea, you know, it's slightly developed. We don't ask a script very, very nourished, but at least some intentions with directors that shows the way you want to do the film. Then it helps us a lot, of course, to decide to read it and to have some advice on it.
Nikki, how did you get in touch with ARTE? I want to hear this because it was a funny story actually.
I got in touch with ARTE because I did Discovery Master School for, which is this thing that you do 4 times a year. You pitch at the end in Leipzig and you meet people like Olaf and Hans Robert and Karen and other people, and then you develop a relationship with ARTE, and I think that's the most important thing. I mean, I think it's quite daunting to, first of all, when you first pitch at somewhere like IDFA, which is what we did, as well as we didn't know who anyone was, and then gradually the more festivals you go to, the more conferences, the more times you meet, and then you can find out also what you want and who you are. And I think that's the kind of way that you have to just. I mean, it's like meeting commissioners from here, but and also you have to make the effort. Make the effort and go to Paris or go to Strasbourg and get on the train and book appointments with people so they know who you are. Also, to find a French producer and talk to them about what the different strands are, what's happening, those kind of things. And once you've developed a relationship, it's much easier to go back because there's a bit of trust that you can deliver a program, that you can make a program for ARTE and then you just carry on. And it's a brilliant relationship because actually without ARTE, we would have never made 4 of our films because there's not enough slots in the UK now, as we all know, for international productions with subtitles. And ARTE, thank God, still want those films.
Gentleman over here who had his hand up. Keep your hand up. And if you could introduce yourselves, that would help. Thank you.
Yes, my name is MTS Puppet. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. We've just finished a doc finishing for Canadian television. So my question is that if we were to sell to French or German, would we be responsible for the versioning in French or German for that, and would it be compensated accordingly?
No. The answer is no. We do the French and German versioning.
Is Christian wanted to ask a question? Thanks.
Hello, Hello, Christian Aurora from BBC, and I used to work at ARTE, but quite a long time ago. Just a couple of observations, actually, just some things from the structure point of view. I think everybody in who's worked for British broadcasters recognises that the schedules of both Channel 4 and BBC are largely series. They're sort of 75% series, often returning series, things that people might not consider documentaries as well, or they might consider them formatted entertainment. In ARTE, I would say it's the reverse, that it's more like 80% single films, which is very good news for documentary makers here because it means that there are more slots. It means that there are more slots in ARTE. It has the problem that Natasha was saying earlier, that when you get a single film away with ARTE, it becomes hard to sell it back into the UK, which is quite series focused. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. Second thing was just to put some, I'm a big one on quotas, and just put some quotas on the half and half that was talked about earlier between France and Germany. It's actually, of the total that, minus the bit for Strasbourg, it's half for France, and then a quarter for ZDF, and a quarter for the remaining ARD stations. So if you're dealing with there's a sort of a hierarchy, if you like, of size of the different regional German stations. There are 9 of them, I think.
Yes.
And they range from NDR and WDR, which are the 2 biggest, right down to one in Bremen, which I think has 1% or 1.5% of the ARTE output. So that was just a precision on that. And then the third thing was, I used to work in Strasbourg, and we always tried to say that there was an editorial focus in Strasbourg. It's not just a committee. I think the impression was given that all these programs come in, and then there's some faceless committee that decides them in a sort of very bureaucratic way. I mean, there is a director of programs of ARTE, and they work in Strasbourg, and there are departments, a documentary department and a theme evening department for the moment, and a current affairs department that will develop, in a sense, the projects all sort of deal with the ones that come in. At least that was the case when I worked there. It was a long time ago, and it may have changed, but I just didn't want the impression to come across that it was a committee, and it was quite a sort of mechanical process.
Thanks.
Now, Christian is absolutely right. The way it works, if we have to start from the other side, is that Strasbourg. In Strasbourg, there's the head of program of ARTE, who is called Christoph Hauser, and he's in charge of settling the editorial frame of the channel in general and each strand in particular. So what we do is that we work within a frame that has been through discussions with other bodies of the channel, but which is settled by this direction of programs in Strasbourg. So the final decision as to whether we, meaning ARTE in general, get involved in the project is taken through editorial discussions that take place at Strasbourg.
Lady in the blue scarf, and then lady up here. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Hikaru Toda, independent filmmaker and ethnographer. I was quite interested when you were talking about wanting to develop more web-based presence for docs. What is the length that you're looking for that platform? And can you just talk us through the pitching process for that as well?
I really don't know what length means for a web project.
So you mean like length of the documentary, so you're talking about 53 for different slots, like biographies, a certain length that you're looking for. So what's the short length?
Broadcast, that is broadcast issues, but regarding internet is completely different. So the thing is, today we've been developing things for the web that went after on the broadcast. We did things on broadcast that went after on the web, and today we're trying mainly to find real cross-media program, hybrid program that's been discussed from the beginning, from the channel, with the broadcast, and with the internet. And it is true that it's quite laboratory still, ARTE. We don't have a frame, not even a budget. Like for the documentaries line, we gave you some figures. It's very different for the web still at the moment. There's no economical model yet, so it's still open because there's no length yet that we have to, search ideas and to develop things. That's why we're doing that now. That's why Prison Valley, Gazage d'Art appeared this way, because there's something new we have to find out altogether. So, if it answers the questions.
And is that already accepting different pitch ideas, or how does that work?
Excuse me?
Are you accepting pitch ideas for the web-based docs?
Yeah, I mean, you should again, all the contacts, examples of what they've produced. I mean, the web department, what they've already produced is available online, and the process of submitting projects is also described there. So.
Okay, where exactly? Can you give me?
Again, arte.tv and the Arte Pro section.
Okay.
We'll take that one more question up front, and I think we'll call an end and then let people get on to the next sessions that they need to get to. Thanks.
Hello, it's Barbara Orton from True TV in Scotland. It's just a question on the commissioning process to kind of try and illuminate that a little bit more about the layers and the protocols and all of that. So if we're talking to you or developing a relationship with someone in ARTE who's commissioning in a specific genre, the ones you talked about, culture, history, whatever, do you work then, excuse me, my voice is going, do you work as a individual commissioner that then goes to Strasbourg, or are you working in a team within your department that then decide what projects you might take to Strasbourg? And then if we're talking to you, so do we talk to an individual commissioner, but it's okay to talk to the rest of the team, or it's then not okay to talk to the Strasbourg people? If you could just illustrate that process, illuminate that process a little bit.
Trying to illuminate, I like the word. Actually, if you talk to a commissioning editor, Marianne and me, so we commissioned, the word is good for that, the program, and our word is worth within our team. Okay, and then we've got a boss, a head of department that has to agree with the project we carry on and want to work with. And then this film has been accepted within the team. And then it goes this commission in Paris, where all the heads of departments on the meeting agreed on the editorial line, on the, I don't know, director, because some people have been working with the director or the producer, or because they just find that the film is very interesting, and then that goes to Strasbourg. But as secretions, people in Strasbourg, they're not just figures this, but people we know. So we've been discussing before sending the project to Strasbourg with our commissioned people there, doing the same job than us, but in Strasbourg, telling them on which project we're working, what project is going to be submitted to this committee, and then they discuss that all together, and then this is this committee making the final decisions. So it takes quite a lot of time. As you can see, the steps are quite a lot. It is true that from the beginning, the starting point in Paris and the end, it goes through stages where the fight is outside and perhaps inside also, because we have to defend your ideas. And I'm not commissioning my program in the end, so you have to trust the people and to have this argumentation very strong on the project, and the project to be very strong too in the writings and the proposal, so it goes through those steps. But from me till the end, there will be different people to be convinced and to be talked to get to the approval in the end.
Just to follow that, just on the protocols side of it then. So by the time it gets to the committee, it's that individual project will have some sorts of support from the various layers on the committee. Well, a project usually gets there and it usually gets support, but it won't have support from everybody, will it? So it'll be a fight there. Or not?
I don't know. It sounds like a very opaque, bizarre things the way it's discussed there. I mean, it's just a normal process of submitting a project to the approval of a commission of an institution. The specific thing in ARTE is that you've got a national layer, then the international layer that may add one stage, but in the end it's a normal public institution that takes care of public money, so which spends it carefully, and it in my view, but maybe producers have a different experience, but it works quite well compared to a number of other public broadcasters in France or elsewhere. There's no big worry about that.
But you can also go back, can't you? I mean, you can if you get turned down in Strasbourg, you can also reapply sometimes, no?
Normally not.
Oh, really?
Normally not. I mean, the question, the answers of the Strasbourg committee can be either to be rediscussed, something like that, and then you're encouraged to reapply. When they say no, normally they consider that they have all the information necessary to say no, and then it's final. Our work as commissioning editors is to, I mean, we're responsible beings, so we propose projects that we know, we bet, we want to be accepted. There's absolutely no other way to work. So turning downs are not that
It's not fun for you either if your boss tells you that the project you proposed is no good.
Of course, but it doesn't work like that. I mean, people talk. I don't know.
There's room for one more, and then I will let these kind of... Can you wait until the mic turns up? Thank you. We can't hear you. Thank you.
If you'd like to approach ARTE with the possibility of a pre-acquisition, and you're in the middle of editing, as Marianne had suggested, how long is the decision-making process? Because, we can't stop editing if we need money to finish.
I understand. An individual reaction of interest of a commissioning editor is a matter of, in my department, a matter of weeks, less than a month, I'd say. Then the process of getting the official approval, which is the condition for a contract, can take up to 2 months. So yes, this is an issue, you're right.
Yeah.
But there's no miracle solution for that.
2 months is not bad. I was expecting a lot longer.
No, I mean, if everything goes well, it can be 2 months. It can be more, of course.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody, for my lovely guests, for joining me today, and I hope you'll give them a round. Sorry.
I'd just like to give one word of advice, because you said, you went to documentary campus, as it's now called. Actually, EDN, the European Documentary Network, if you become a member there, they publish a wonderful TV buyer's guide that tells you more about all these slots, who these people are, what their phone numbers are, what their email addresses are, how long their slots are. So if you become a member, you get this thing, and you can attend their wonderful workshops. They have workshops all across Europe where you actually get to meet people. They have these week-long workshops where you can come with your projects. They do pitching trainings and whatnot, and that gives you a chance to actually meet them in a relaxed way. So that's my word of advice.
Well, thanks everybody for coming.